Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I thought I'd start out today's video in our garden so you can see the non-winter that we're having. If you've looked at any of my videos from about a year ago, you will remember I was knee-deep in snow, but look at this. It's kind of frightening that we haven't had very much snow at all this winter. I know some of you are probably saying, wow, well that's so cool, but we need the snow and we need that moisture. So I thought for today's video, we would do some follow-ups on the seed starting video from last week. I know it was a really long video. I promised to keep this one short, but there's a few things that I wanted to show you and follow up with you. I wanted to show you what's happening with the seeds that I've recently planted. You might recall from last week's video that I planted lettuce seeds in this tray. And you can see some of the plants really easily, and there are a few that are just teeny tiny little things. Here's a little one right there. Now, I labeled this tray, and I'm so glad I did that because this row, which was Flashy Troutback, that is actually the name of a lettuce variety, has not germinated at all. And so I really need to replace it with some other variety because I think those seeds just aren't working. Also, I planted more than one seed in these individual spots. And what I'm going to do, because it's the easiest, is I'm going to let them grow for a bit and then I'll clip out the ones that aren't doing well. And that way I'll have an individual plant per cell to transplant out into the garden later. Last week I also planted some leek seeds, and the variety is Bulgarian Giant. I grew it last year and it is amazing. But look at these wimpy little seedlings. It amazes me that something so little will turn into such an enormous plant. Now, almost all of the seeds have germinated, but I'm going to put this lid on for another day or two just to see if the last couple of cells will germinate. And then I'll leave the lid off permanently. Now, I realized that last week's topic was seed starting and not necessarily growing microgreens, but I just wanted to show you how great these look. That was the topic of the video before the seed starting one, and you can see that they're growing great. Now, with microgreens, you grow them very closely together, obviously, and that's because what I'm going to do is harvest all of the green parts and have them in salads and other dishes. So I just wanted to show you this because, man, they are doing great. Now, while we're on the subject of microgreens, I thought you might like to see how our pea microgreens are doing. And so you can see the seeds have germinated really well. And something that I think folks aren't aware of is that the foliage of pea plants is edible, and it tastes just like fresh green peas. It is absolutely delicious. So I'm going to let these grow a little bit longer, and then I'll harvest the whole stalk from each seed. We'll eat them, and then in the meantime, all of the seeds will resprout. I'll harvest those, and I might even get a third cutting out of there. So you really get your money's worth with peas. Now, my husband Bill is getting in on the seed starting act as well. He has planted a whole bunch of these little onions, and this is Italian Red of Florence. We got the seeds from Botanical Interests, and they are a bunching onion or scallion. And what he did is he planted 3 or 4 seeds per cell of each pony pack. And then when it's time to plant them outdoors, he will gently tease apart the little onion seedlings and plant them individually. If you saw my video last week, you know that I showed you how to do a germination test. And the whole point of it is if you have some old seeds and you're not sure if they're still viable, this is a very simple way to see what percentage of germination you can expect from them. So I have 10 seeds here. These are Green Arrow pea seeds that I got from Seeds of Change. This packet got lost in my seed box, and I noticed that it said 5/2013. And it says sell by 2015. Well, here we are in 2021, and I thought, boy, I don't know if they're still viable. Well, out of these 10 seeds, all but one germinated. So that tells you I would get roughly a 90% germination rate were I to plant those out in the garden. So I just wanted to give you a follow-up so you could see for yourself what's happened. And actually it's pretty cool to see a seed that's germinated just to see how it works. Another thing that I showed you last week was the seed starting scheduler resource, which is on my website. So if you go to susansinthegarden.com and you go to the guides menu, just scroll down until you see seed starting scheduler. When you get to that page, there is a link to a downloadable file that you can print out. And you know, this thing is really simple, but it really helps me stay on track with my seed starting. So let me give you a couple of examples. This is this year's, and you'll notice in the left column under seed type, I have the name of the crop and the variety that I'm growing. And I always hang on to these because it helps me track what I've grown. But I don't use this column very often, this weeks before last frost, but sometimes I'll fill in some information there. But mainly what I'm doing is I'm filling in when I want to start the seeds indoors and when I want to transplant them out into the garden. And then in the right-hand column, I'll put some notes to myself. For example, artichokes, for them to be real productive in my cold region, you need to do some treatment to the seeds ahead of time. And so I have a note to myself about vernalizing the seeds February 15th. Now, you don't need to know about that today, but I just wanted to point out, you know, sometimes I'll list, well, I only need this amount of plants, or something that is important about the seeds that I'm growing. So I wanted to show that to you. Now let me show you last year's seed starting scheduler. It probably will make you laugh. So here's my 2020 scheduler, and you'll notice it's a bit of a mess. So one thing I do is each time I start a seed, I will check it off the list, and then that way anything that isn't checked off the list I'll keep looking at to see, okay, when does that need to be planted? And that keeps me on track. Now also you'll notice the indoor plant date column and the transplant date column have a lot of lines through them. That's because sometimes I planted something a little earlier or a little later, and I transplanted it at a different time. And this really helps me plan for the next year because I'll see adjustments I've made to my planting schedule. So for example, I planted my Musica pole bean seeds indoors on April 22nd. I had intended to start them on May 1st, and I must have decided the weather was nice enough that I could get them going earlier. And I had intended to plant them outdoors on May 10th, and you'll notice I planted them on the 4th. So these types of things really make it a breeze to plan for the next year if you hold on to old copies of your seed starting schedulers. I even have a note here reminding me that I should plant eggplants and melons later than I did. And that's because it was a little cool for them and they really struggled. So make notes on these to yourself so that you remember what you did the previous year, and boy, you will really have it down to a science after a few years. The last thing I wanted to do is to give you a friendly reminder that I have a brand new book coming out, the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook. I wrote it for all levels of gardeners, from beginning to master gardener. This will help you identify both the good bugs and the bad bugs in your garden and provide you with all sorts of methods for dealing with the bad ones using effective organic controls. This is going to be such a great resource. If you pre-order it now, you will receive special bonus material that is not in the book. It contains my best tips for growing your favorite veggies and some that you might not have thought of growing. All you need to do is order it from your bookstore or preferred online source and email me your order confirmation. My email address is susan@susansinthegarden.com. Then I'll send you a link to the bonus material. This is a great deal. And thanks so much, everybody, for your support. Everybody is so excited about this book, and so am I. Well, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.